These give rise to the motivation of Bodhisattva, which is to think, I will establish all mother sentient beings who are limitless in number as the vast expanse of space, and by all means at the level of perfect, unsurpassable enlightenment. And in order to do that, I will now listen to this profound Dhamma and put it into practice.
The great sacred mind saying Tawa Tasiki Saman to Chuma Singing the Gone, Tawa the Bombatan, Achupatan, the Duduchi, the Sherochi, something that I did the children from Alson, I think that they are gone to the Juma.
So today we are going to be looking at the view, meditation and conduct as presented in my book, The Great Secret of the Mind. So this is what I've been requested to teach, to discuss by the Dhammasanta Bhöd. So I will do my best to discuss the view, meditation and conduct accordingly to proof.
Very well.
And all of you here, well, this is not my first time here, this is my second time. So most of you are also well aware that myself and Chirag Gyatso Rinpoche, we are close Dharma friends from a long time ago, since a long time. And Chirag Gyatso Rinpoche's Khandro said repeatedly that I must come and visit the center. So now I'm here. And because of recent weather, snow, fall and so on, then most students haven't been able to come to the center itself. It's true that the road up to the center is really not very good. So I've been told that there's some students listening via Zoom. I don't really know how it works with Zoom and who's on Zoom, but whoever is on Zoom, perhaps other students connected to the center, please listen to the teachings well.
tanda tanda namu eti indi kona di per consulta subject tola mar jawaji capture doje kana chuze kashi borsare den subject tene mango tene mango yore di indi kona jati tamje del tu mundu te taina ngalange kana shishi te utang wi tonen gone ta ji jugne ta kasene ji patuni kena ba ji sheba ina ne ken pendo chama sare ta tirin zo de tawa gone shikure ne ngalo ke tawa gone shikure ko ta ke ko ma sheba gone shikure sare de indi kona tawa de dingi che de shi che sa kaware sena zoba chambo shi chi gore 직직 보게 아래 가서는 님 맞으래 님이 있다와 저시 때 저것이 뭐지 내가 나라면서 나네 저것이 주는 거 중에 쉬어인데 네 따뜻한 하나 그래요 디시식으로 미탐에서 하나 그래요 디미리시리 제 땅에 와지는 그 시시식 그래 야 드네 지금이게 지금 하나랑 저희 칼라사 교회나 칼라랑 게 수요일에 제 디시식 나는 요즘 가요 디미리시식 그래 디인들하고 미게 좀 디시식도 요 인전 때가 된비게 되네 지금랑게 거하디 또서 내려 또서 지금 거하도다 그렇죠 요이도 디디통이 시기도 나랑 링해야라 네 딩에 말아야 다시나 안디도 삼네 딩에 디때지 탐고 디디거나 미리 되진 제발에 되리야 되는 진나신지네 네 휴게 된데 이거가 자체적으로 지금 저 차선 시도 교육자면도 다와시나 되게서 뭐 고바시나 되게서 뭐 그래 이나야 때들이 din나네다 아내가도 무슨 여행고주 탐진에 저 샤ම්다가나 빌라도 때문에 내가 지금 저 때문에 주부서 로이나 야 어디야 지지 잠들이 좀 어디로 와서 비디오 그때 원이 주거든 나오는 무지개 여기 컨셉다 아리포르 쉐이크 주던 때문에 누가 선비지다 저는 계속 용들이 이나야 때문에 또 때문에 이제 섹션 subject 주시바 devna sabji chushipa demitu ngepa dodi gombatan jati temba asakenti ne titon shegins tawa de chushire tawa de sabji nana sabji amni chushire do
So I'm going to be teaching based on my book, The Great Secret of the Mind. That said, the book is pretty long. It's 200 or 300 pages in Tibetan. It's also a pretty thick book in English, the English translation. So it's certainly not possible to discuss the whole book just within 1 or 2 hours, or 1 or 2 hours of teaching. It wouldn't even be possible to give the lung, the oral transmission for the text in this space of time. So what I'm going to be doing is sharing some important points of the view, meditation, and conduct based on my book. That said, actually everything that's written in the book is important. Indeed, that's why things are included in the book, because they're important. But still, I will try and kind of condense the subject matter into some essential points. It's several years since I composed this book, but happily it's something that it's a composition I'm still pretty happy with. Sometimes you write something, but then several years later you look back at that composition and you see flaws in it, right? You feel like, oh, I should have changed that, I should have, I could have improved that, I should have changed that. But even though it's several years since I published this book, when I come back and reread it, I'm still happy with it. So. And like I said, because of the limited time frame, even if we were just to try and discuss the book by means of the outline, we wouldn't have time for that either. So this is why I'm going to be taking the approach of just discussing the view, meditation, and conduct, as I've said, in terms of their really essential points, trying to kind of condense or extract some of the vital points from the book and share those with you. I think this will be more beneficial in this context. So this morning session we're going to discuss the view, and in the afternoon session we're going to discuss meditation and conduct. And the basis or sort of foundation, or rather this stance from which we're going to be discussing these things is that of the Great Perfection. I'm a Nyingma student of the Nyingma tradition, a teacher of the Nyingma tradition, which which is the tradition of the Great Perfection, and I've received many Great Perfection teachings and transmissions, and so I have some knowledge of those teachings. We all, when it comes to sharing, we need to share what we ourselves have, right? So whatever sort of knowledge one has, that's the knowledge that one should share with others. Like if you're a chef, say you're a really expert chef, then you could share your knowledge of cooking with others, right? In my case, I've had a lot of exposure and training in the Great Perfection. I have some understanding of these teachings, so it's therefore my responsibility. It's relevant and also my responsibility to share these teachings. Indeed, that was my whole motivation in composing this book several years back. So, in short, I will extract some vital points from the book, from different places in the book. We won't be going sort of through the book bit by bit, but extracting vital points. Nevertheless, if later after these teachings you were to sit down and read the book from beginning to end, you'll be sure to come across everything I mentioned today. So we'll begin by looking at the view, and regarding the view, I'm going to focus on the 14th section of the chapter on the view, so 1.14, the conviction that all is unreal accords with the sutras.
The best house now, program now, the shape, that did all done that give a the shape. I thought to do that, give us a man to realizing nearby and to appreciate. YouTube now, which I to concert that happen or something that you're not taking about the same audio doing it. I thought that implementation. Diana in the shape become the Marang secretary Mara, Java Josh and the to go to that. Nee chiri narang so di mare din di to ka ti nam dun di narang de lo kan de cha ba ti ke na ba shu sha ina ni ko de wa ta ni ni she de wa de yo de what why what do you mind ti ni ko ta ti ge dun da ma she to ni di chu shi da sa ti chu shi ba de me to ne ban do yi ko ba ta ja ti de ma sin ji na chu dun ba sen jen tham ji gi ju la san ji gi ni ko yo su lu se ti pe ke shi mo.
So, like I said, I will discuss section 14, the conviction that all is unreal accords with the sutras. I'll also discuss section 17, reasonable proof that Buddha nature exists in our mind stream. The Buddha Dharma teaches that all sentient beings have Buddha nature, Sugata Garbha, that all beings are endowed intrinsically with self-arisen Rigpa, natural Rigpa. This is a very important point, knowing that this is the case and how it is so. So I will discuss the view today by means of these, focusing on these two sections, these 2 points. I also recently discussed this section on Buddha nature at a talk at Tibet House. So yeah, if you want to sort of hear more about that, learn about it in more detail, then you can probably listen to that, find that recording of that teaching on YouTube or something, maybe an audio recording, I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not going to be going through the text line by line, explaining my composition word by word. We don't have time for that, so rather in this context I will just be condensing the meaning, the essential points of these 2 sections and presenting my understanding of those to you. So we're going to be looking, to reiterate, we're going to be looking at section 1.14, the conviction that all is unreal accords with the sutras, and 1.17, reasonable proof that Buddha nature exists in our mind stream.
gomsu nyongwa ngarangi nyongwa chungsu yoba tabi ndaya tene tene nigi tebdi chiwa tano tanda ngarang sheku tene tene chenchen namba shukyoge tene shukins.
This book is built on the words and teachings of the great masters Longchenpa, Jigme Lingpa, the omniscient Jigme Lingpa, and Longchenpa, the Haruka Dujun Lingpa, the late Dujun Rinpoche, Jija Yeshe Doje, also the teachings of Jun Mipam Rinpoche, and Rongzong Mahapandita, these great masters. In addition to those, the words of those great masters, the teachings of all of my root gurus, everything I heard and learned from them. The book is basically a presentation of those teachings. There's very little of my own experience included in the book. I don't have much personal experience since I haven't really yet cultivated direct experience through practice, but a little of the experience I do have, I have included, but for the most part it's the teachings of these other masters.
Oh yeah. Dineta Jangu Mihan was a console, that Jangu Mihan was a console, some Tamchesonde, the Tamicha, Tamchison, sick by the Zocher Ramu Tripala, Dindon put up Chipagers in Hanbuchi, the Suarez. The question was about Tambuchet in the Demi Gimata was Hako or Matoke, Chetan Gimata. Oh, yeah, Milam was a hammer, what they don't put some much of Gimata Milam was Hamakone. Chetamjela Denzin that Nunzin Nani, Denzin that Nunzin Shen, talking money, the watching with the request more Chogosana, it's all in Chogomare, launching Rilapon and launching Nagos and was in Chatters. Launching Ranashan, launching Nagos in Towers, language, Lang Balance Nansha, Ganji Rita, who really knew my language now. Dinashing Tambuchet and the Demit Hapores, same is the ranching Demit Hamabu Partu, any Kazaki date in a language date in Nalasha, Langi Rilsa de Nashi, Misha Tambuchet and the Demit Hapu, you'll go name the name, but you think go name the name, but the application for the S, Japan Harmony, that's all this.
Rinpoche said, in order to recognize the Rigpa of great perfection, first of all, one needs to recognize that all phenomena are unreal. In order to recognize the Rigpa, natural awareness of the great perfection, first of all, we need to recognize that all things are unreal, meaning all phenomena do not truly exist, they're not established. They are merely like illusions, like dreams. Otherwise, if we remain entrenched in clinging to reality and clinging to characteristics, and we attempt to recognize Rigpa of the great perfection, while still entrenched in such clinging, there's simply no way that that's going to happen. That is not possible. It's a bit like leaving a cow inside and going outside to search for it in the mountains. If the cow is locked up in its stable and you go outside and walk through the mountains trying to find it, you're never going to find it, right? Because the cow is inside the stable. You're looking in the wrong place. So it's just like that. First of all, we need to recognize, to come to understand that the mind is unreal. Mind does not truly exist. We need to understand that all things do not truly exist. We need to understand this by means of the, in terms of the perceiving subject and the perceived object. This is incredibly important, Rinpoche said.
Tini da tina jengi naranzo dunjumi batatun dunjumi bige nanjang mi kirashi bola jabu yona tateng nala tangshu or mepa chiku chawa hunju shishi on tangu mepa de sheta shotam de demi tongba mata ujere senation yares.
Likewise, in the Haruka Dujun Lingpa's famous text called Mangjam, or Buddhahood without meditation, this famed and renowned text, Dujun Lingpa first of all presents the 4 stages or points known as non-existence, pervasiveness, singularity, and spontaneous presence. The first of these is non-existence, right? So, likewise, Dujun Lingpa says the first point one needs to understand is that all things do not exist. All phenomena are just like illusions and dreams.
Hindi Galata Tambu Aranzo, Chetam de Demeto, Josian Ramon Chopala, Casas, Denton Putachip of Goose, Chetam de Demar Matubachi Hapo. In the Tacho Tamji the Sur Dushana, oh, yeah, the name Chinawa Nuki dance against now the name of the Slimgi, oh, yeah, the name Sims against it, shit and now against you. 이게 문제만 사람들은 강성제 소리 이제 특성들 나와 강성됐으나 야 시주는 생기 치 누지 생기 주는죠 남선은 미탈레셔 와서다 디나와 탓도니 치 나와 탓인다 치수다 디로 레살아서 바이나레 리라와 컨트롤라서 바이나레 야 진짜 참 기대되네 다시 제는 상황한테 통치 생기 다샤로지 생기 소샤지 좀 요마레 어디에 치주나 생기 춘춘된 정화 나무선을 비쌀레셔와 생생이 지금 오지 두개 레베스나 생생이 뒤에 뭐부터 버터 가게 요마 디비가 디들 비기 춘춘이 좀 와서 리비기 좀 나셔서 리비기 살자 나라마도 생생이 뒤에 뭐부터 버터 요마 디비가 이제 문진신 보기네 어야 친구 탐지는 것도 이마도 인레진이 되는 거. 근데 나는 저기 다 디기니 가서서나 뭐하는 것 때문에 윤중링 밖에는 내파치고 차와서 최탐지를 하신 맞춤받던 거니래 해서 디디에는 유지고 유정의 거는 때는 망고지 제가세네 에네 나는 하시는 거 때문에 봐봐. 다 대표에게 계신 거래. 친구보다 대전에 마음도 봐도 되는 나는 거기 못하다 자원이는 대비가 되게신 거다. 오늘 다 대나신 제게 딱 정답 방식이 있는다. 이제 친구 소리나다, 지민이 소리나다, 마음이 소리나다. 덴즈디시 거라도 덴즈데 마시게 봐도 얘네 못하다 자원이는 거만. 대비 담보 되는 choses 데메트다. 다 최탐지 데메트다 봐봐라. 네, 강화서 꼬마다도 되는 편이 때문에 받아서 차선다도 되면 받아서 조선다도 되면 받아서 그냥 대신 지금에게 말하는 소리나 굉장히 된 최선이 때문에 이마다 올때가 바탕을 또 지켜버려야 해서
So, first of all, this is to say that in order to recognize the great perfection, to recognize the stage of the great perfection within oneself, first of all, we need to realize, to recognize that all phenomena, all things are unreal. When we say all phenomena can be comprised into external appearances, which includes the world and everything in the world, and the inner perceiving mind. So outer appearances and the inner mind. In his Treasury of the Supreme Vehicle, the omniscient Longchenpa explains that all external appearances are the magical creation of the mind. And the experience of inner mind arises as the display of Rigpa. So all external appearances, outer appearances, whether they be the sense perceptions of the eye, ear, nose, taste faculty, touch faculty, and so on, the different sense perceptions, or perceptions of, say, the environment, like mountains, pillars, and so on. All of these are imputations of the mind, projections of the mind. As Longchenpa said, all external appearances are the magical creations of the mind. Likewise, regarding the mind, Longchenpa said, the experience of the inner mind or internal mind is merely the experience of internal mind arises from, the experience of internal mind is the display of Rigpa, natural awareness. This is to say that mind too does not truly exist. It's merely the display of Rigpa, natural awareness. So in this way, Longchenpa ascertains that all external phenomena are just like dreams and just like illusions. Likewise, the Haruka Vijayalingpa ascertains the lack of reality of all things when he presents in his famous Namjam text the four principles of non-existence, pervasiveness, singularity and spontaneous presence, and regarding when discussing the first principle of non-existence, he examines and analyzes phenomena, both from the perspective of the perceiving object and the perceived subject, and comes to ascertain, to show us that all phenomena in fact do not truly exist, they're just illusions and dreams. The point is that until we realize that phenomena are unreal, it's simply not possible for us to recognize Rigpa, natural awareness. So whether we look at the teachings of the Haruka Dujun Lingpa, the Nisik Nongchenpa, or Jigin Lingpa, or Mikron Rinpoche, we can see that the main point is that we need to dissolve our grasping at reality, our fixation on true existence. Without doing that, it is simply not possible for us to recognize Rigpa. So it's clear then that to begin with, we need to dissolve our clinging at reality, we need to ascertain that all phenomena do not truly exist. That said, the way that this is ascertained, the way that one comes to ascertain the lack of reality of all things, differs depending on which teaching or approach we look at. For instance, the Madhyamaka or Mahamudra or Great Perfection approach.
California neuroscience neuroscience law physics research machines Jack scientists guess there was a word only get six in the Tongo. The scientists will density really a microscope in a Tongo. Oh, yeah, keep the cut one weapon. Guess the Tongo is that in the case account, the other around to scientists not better to start at the time something not only. We part touch on the dance and getting that medical science. No, digger to the dancing microscope touch on the you don't know what kind of matter, but the chicken and be loaded to what are the true what dig is then to what any good. Oh, yeah, the next too big dune to get the function for Russian quality. Then you can't see no work in that. Send the Dana antidote. Then you got Tigra in the Meva. Tidia Tango Hako, Hak Makona saw in Ontario, and Hako was the teacher. But to Hako was a mind, but till never was careful. Hako did, Hako was never giving him social, but didn't have each work for each summer's never saw. Didn't never did join with the Gomja. Want to become the title, never told Gomji young to count in little bit rather than a dog. To say on the town, you jiggle to the dog, or nothing to talk to it. It is they make it for Shani. In the Sevaina, in the house of Tanjik, they look at 20, Roberts of the Tongula, and of chimney dress.
So the fact that all phenomena do not truly exist, this is something that's taught in Buddhist teachings from the foundational sutra vehicles, the vehicles of characteristics, all the way up to the vehicle of the great perfection. However, the way that this is taught and the way that it has come to be understood differs considerably amongst those vehicles. All of you here are very well educated, you have sharp minds, and you're probably well aware that in the Madhyamaka teachings, the teachings of the middle way, we find sets of reasoning, logical reasonings through which we can examine and come to understand that all phenomena do not truly exist. We can deconstruct, analyze and deconstruct phenomena and come to an understanding that phenomena do not exist in the way they appear. For instance, let's take the five sense perceptions, the objects of our five sense perceptions rather, visually perceived forms, sounds, tastes, smells, and so on. When we do not examine, when we do not question our experience, these appear to be true and real. However, when we begin to analyze, they simply fall apart. We cannot find anything real or established there whatsoever. The Madhyamaka gives us several sets of reasonings to use in order to understand the lack of reality of phenomena, such as the reasoning that analyzes the cause, known as the Vajra nails. The Vajra-like reasoning that examines the cause, let's say, the reasoning that examines the essence, namely the being beyond singularity and plurality, and then the reasoning that examines everything, or that covers everything, the great reasoning of interdependence, and so on. So these different types of reasonings, and from among which the let's say the essential reasoning that the essential reasoning that shows all things are beyond singularity and plurality. This is said to be the sharpest of all of these logical reasonings. Of course, all of them are very sharp and they're very piercing analyses, but this is nevertheless said to be the king of them all. Rinpoche says this in his Umagyen, his ornament of the middle way. And he says there that all sentient beings have the mind that grasps to things as being singular, meaning singular and whole, whether it be a house, the environment, an object, or a concept like a nation. We perceive these things to be singular in the sense that they are whole and kind of complete in and of themselves. Based on this mistaken clinging to things as being singular or whole, then our clinging tightens, triggers different emotions. The notion of sort of, let's take an example of a nation. We cling to the nation as being whole, and then we grasp onto that as being sort of my nation. It's now something to defend, and then we spiral into conflict. We've had an international conflict or war. This happens on sort of large and small scales, all right. The same goes for our body. We perceive our body as being one whole thing. Our family as being one whole thing. Our friends, our property. Everything we perceive as being sort of whole and complete in itself. That's what's meant by singular. If, however, we examine this conception, we cannot find any singular whole thing at all. Let's take the bell in front of me. We call this object a bell. We think of it as one complete thing, a singular thing. But actually, it's not a singular thing at all. It is made up of different parts, the handle, the bottom, and so on. If we examine it in terms of its directions, we won't be able to find a bell in any one of the 10 directions. We can deconstruct it into the different parts, and then more subtly into the various atoms that comprise it. We can then deconstruct those, or examine the various atoms into their respective parts. There's nothing at all that we can identify or find, and there is no singular bell. We perceive the bell, for instance, as being singular and whole, but when we examine, we soon see that this is a mistaken concept. So in this way, we mistakenly perceive all external phenomena as singular, as whole. We have the same mistaken perception of our own self. We grasp our body, we identify with our body. So, for instance, I think I am Pemerixa, I exist. This is my body. My body is a whole thing. It is me. When I actually examine my body though, from top to bottom, I cannot find any truly existent body anywhere. There is no singular whole body. In spite of my mistaken perception, I can take my body apart, deconstruct it into its constituent parts and down to a subtle level of atoms and so on. There is no body to be found. Likewise with mind. So we deconstruct the body and then we're left with mind, right? The mind that we identify with. But actually, and so we begin by thinking of consciousness as a single thing. But if we look at consciousness, we can then break it up into, say, the 5 different types of consciousness, or the 6 different types of consciousness if we add mental consciousness. Or then we can add the afflicted consciousness and the all-ground consciousness to make 8. In addition, we have like the 25 mental states and so on and so forth, as taught in the Abhidharma and Prajnaparamita teachings. There is no singular whole consciousness to be found at all, in spite of our mistaken perception. Buddha taught 84,000 different types of afflictions, 84,000 different types of afflicted state of mind. But in actual fact, these days, I think 84,000 wouldn't cover everything. We have so many new phenomena, new ideas, new notions. Sort of new thoughts, states of mind proliferating all the time. So I think 84,000 just doesn't cover things anymore. The point is that until we dissolve our grasping to reality, and as long as we continue to grasp at things as being singular in the sense of whole, whether it be external phenomena or our inner mind. Because again, let's examine the mind. We think that we talk about mind as if it's a singular whole thing, but actually mind is comprised of different types of consciousness. The 5 sense consciousnesses, the mental consciousness, the all-ground consciousness, and so on and so forth. Just like external phenomena cannot be identified and found, mind too cannot be identified and found. In the past, when Vanessa was here, she told me that there was a neuroscientist she knew, a man called Jack, who'd been working in the field of neuroscience for like 30 or 40 years. And he explained that according to neuroscience, that approach, when they examined phenomena, they of course examined phenomena using apparatus like microscopes, right? Whereas in the Madhyamaka tradition, they examined using logical reasoning. So when he explained, or rather this neuroscientist said, when they examine with very accurate microscopes and other apparatus, they cannot find any solid object that lines up with the way we perceive things. For instance, if it's a vase, when they examine what we perceive as a solid vase, under these microscopes, all they can perceive is a kind of vague gas, nothing with a solid color or shape, nothing that matches up with our perception of a vase, for example. So we can also use the approach of modern science to come to understand that external phenomena do not exist, or rather that phenomena do not exist. In this way, modern science, the approach of modern science is very much in accord with the approach of Madhyamaka in a way. In accord in the sense of coming to understand, to ascertain the fact that all phenomena are unreal, they don't truly exist. They're merely imputations, mistaken imputations of the mind. So again, our confusion, our mistake is grasping two things as being singular and whole and real. Because of that mistaken perception, which doesn't match up with the way things really are, we then fall into a state of confusion, self-pain, and so on, and into this ever sort of increasing spiral that leads us through the various levels and realms of samsara. This being the case, we need first to understand that all phenomena, external phenomena and the inner mind, all lack reality, they don't truly exist. This is the thing, this is what we need to come to understand, first of all, at the outset. First of all, we need to gain a conceptual understanding of this fact. Then we need to develop that conceptual understanding into inner certainty. When we talk about understanding and certainty, we're talking about two distinct things. Certainty, when we say certainty, we mean an inner sense of certainty, a conviction, like a heartfelt conviction that is more experiential. It's based on this kind of inner certainty that we need to meditate by maintaining and cultivating that inner certainty. If we do that, then for sure we can eventually come to the point where we realize directly the natural state, not just as an abstract concept, but directly.
Yeah, that's the thing. All time Tehachapi country, oh, Maranzo, Stemki, now the Nana, Cure, Rita, Rawa, Yakov, it's a town today, and what you are, there was half of education for it. And the two other conditions, the two other the two half one night, Maranzo, the Royal laying a bazaar to Japan, but in the city, the Mogo Soda, Mogo, the Kogenso, and dogs. Itati Godi is against and Jikin Sendi Chashala, Chambasho, Lamaina, Tuguina, Chambuina, Anza Travasoina, Nanjel Masoina, Nanjel Pasoina, Tamuzikorotella, Chambashambo, Tito, the Turkey, Portumo, you can do with the Kaina. Was that the what the Sassagiri, the Hakuat and Japan, Hakuat, Nepaki, Nepati, Nyowas, Gonja. It's a common maybe getting a passer member in Lamson, the Nesi, around to the Chisore, Chisala, you shall get to the around to get Chisore, that's it. The Shash and those, the around to Chisala, you don't do the Tinder do so in the Tiki or more money, the same with the Pasha, you know, start the way you do, the Pasha, the me, to the Juju. Pasha Tadantla, Shabashuri, asked the name of Semi Typical Capsule, only go with us, and that's the button that only go, repeat the year, and not the neck of Sutilla, carrying those room, shouldn't get the Mikimata was not to the Tabia, the name at the Zabashin Capsule, and Sal, Tilla, Matupa, the Nicaragua, booking also Shami, 최선의 팀이 기마도 rangi tene ke nontonge tene tapjane de yore iti bida kuzo tapjane de lotam dawa mo gumni ata tene chuto tene ke bujire ina ya tunji gomna phenda mere tunji gomna phenda tene yore no ma ko de so ko tunji gomna phenda men tunju de gomna phenda le ma tunju gomna phenda tenja gomna tunja gomna phenda men de to de lo mo samde 팬들 때 요래 때 있나야 팬들 되게 지금 나와서 미바시 보면 맨이나 맨디페나 엔티베틱 때문에 사게나 지금 엔티베틱의 도스 납자사 것에 지금 이제 뭐 무슨 팽이고 이제 나한테 야 이제 뭐 팽이 맞자 엔티베틱 건 팽이 맞아 엔티베틱 도스 시비야 팽이고 인티스게 나서 공디요 네 지금에 뒤쳤던 나와서 공부할 때 여러분 봐도 본 대신 도움이 계신 분이 그랬어.
So it's very important that we come to recognize that all phenomena are not real, they do not truly exist. And that in that way we then come to understand that all of our perceptions, everything we see, hear, smell and so on, is actually a confused perception, it's actually delusion. We need to come to understand and acknowledge this. This is very important. We need to recognize that our experience is confused, and we need to understand how that is so. Otherwise, if we fail to understand the fact that we're confused, like I said, first of all, we need to gain an understanding of our confusion, right? The nature, an understanding and acknowledgement that we are confused. We then need to develop that into inner certainty, and then based on that inner certainty, we need to engage in meditation. If we train in that way, then through such meditation practice, we can come to a realization. That said, it's not something that's going to happen straight away, right? Because we have karma and habitual tendencies since the beginning of this time. We have been accruing habitual imprints in our mind since time without beginning. So these habitual imprints, this confusion of ours, it's not something that we can just discard straight away. It's not like an object, you know. If you want to get rid of an object, you can just take it off your table and throw it in the bin. But our confusion, our habitual confusion is not like that. It takes time and persistence to purify these habitual imprints. And there are also different ways of purifying, which will affect how long it takes. For instance, in the vehicle of characteristics, the sutra teachings, one purifies one's confusion by meditating on emptiness. In the Vajrayana teachings, through the practices of generation stage and completion stage, for instance. And at the level of the great perfection, without needing to without relying on the practices of the subtle channels, winds and essences, one simply rests in natural ease, in rinpa, natural awareness, and through that comes to recognize the natural state nakedly and directly. So, in any case, one needs to practice for months and years in order to see a result. We need to train for months and years. Having said that, it's also not the case that, we might think then, well, so if that's the case, it's just like a single session of practice useless? Is it not doing anything? It's still doing something. Ramazan Mahapandita clarified this. He said, every single session of practice is beneficial, but the degree of benefit is going to differ. So just a single session of meditation practice brings about benefit. But in terms of how much benefit, well, if we then, compared to 10 sessions of practice, one session is going to be less beneficial, right? Likewise, 100 sessions of practice is going to be more beneficial than 10, and so on and so forth. It's a bit like antibiotics, right, or medicine. Say you have a course of antibiotics. You really need to take the whole course. But even if you take just one dose, it's not the case that that single dose of antibiotics isn't doing anything, right? That single dose is still going to work, just not going to, you're just not going to get the whole result if you don't complete the course. So this is why it's really important for us to train and apply ourselves persistently and enduringly.
Oh yeah, today you contact me to the condition. I'm to the condition to survive. In the answer, mobile church and a congress and a taki from my end. You need your never done. To me, ship over the chopper learning your own case, chopper learning your own case in the social. The council taki from my end and around the second with your own budget, several your own way, you can say music jet. Get the union you never the penation on a desert. Around the desert, you do my road in there. Around the Ken Kashi, the Benati, professions of Tukoshari, the Kesa to Menzigal, to what they should look as it took to Garida, but not bad, which was a very good turn to which I must say, not having Pema and Kosia and the evening gate of Tildoy, as it does a color and Tildoy. The parking drums is to the Kuki cheat the margin, very thanks, it left from them. Arjo and meeting Chipas and Garika, Bochil of the true market on the get a having tank like physical Zinrusis and Hazard Shane, the best also. The gate choosing to get into the Shumushuru. The Kashi Chambu, make it on that Chambu Jaka put on that, Chimbu to get a take it on it to a Kashi choosing to sit to me Kashi Garika, Haran tanks, Jackie Monty Aquats was a zero because the boxing rush to the city. In the conductors of Khan, Tutan Chipari, Chambu Tuna Chipari, Chunju Tuna Chipari. Kirazo, President Tuna, Tutan Chipari, Magin homeless station on a non Chipari. Gardens and not Chipari is Lana. Taki Pom, my instance, one similar. The moment you take this in your own town again, take it for another year, and we can be shut on again at the door. And the cook benefit again material television. Put again the terrible change to do that by Europe. Then the take it from my instance, another similar, no matter the years. Then he can drag it to the content, drag it to the content, cotton the content, and consequence of the child. Can part of the water come back on your market, then you drain and close case. When a tank to let them come, Mother, cotton, the consequence of this hour. Penalty, the Tassuris do Manga, to become a part of the tongue, the daddy something disturbing and sympathy. You let me the shoes on the car, he didn't it. Oh, yeah, take it from my mind. You need your never done that. When I shut down on something done, you get it. Young over chucks a bit special, that's mean the old auntie, and be you never. To me, Egypt of body, to me, Egypt of was the partial of the Maduna and Danny is a bit of a Yen Maduna, Yen, to me, Egypt of us, and the choosing my big number of us, true as that. We are deep of a soon the song you can, so well in your own case, that this soon sound, another taggy you ever see. You did that putting it in around objects that are together. Do you ever say? Deep dollar, number two was lower to the for days of the logic, new days of the party, shoveling on their good. Did it station where the push up was to do it over here. The contact true at the soon go become the true at the shovel. True at the one, this is mine, and I'm getting that up to Shadow Rose because I said, I can't the team becomes Shatansky. This is not the human should be on the lesser. Lately, the Kawachimania one with the last of the Yata with the Linian Bassa. That gave us Chima in Yellow, you pass your show, and give us this house on the way. Didn't miss the balance, but you don't know with your loss. Not a child Kumalas of a gentleman, no one with the loss of the mind by 90 peg, the Gary, the taxes, the wash around, so national Asaya Megan, please see, can you make on a 2 young, continuing to go to the road? All us of the dilemma with condition was it came the also, this soon begin with each other. Did that did happen at the Naranto, Shetan Kandisi and the true on the key and somebody halfway enough. Then the Pemig that he around the Balkans in the old of this area. Pemig, you didn't change around the chapter. They didn't see what something came to Mare, Penamati Hapu, Matarosha, don't take the Rosha like you. The Tatikina and Tikio happened, they make Louis Johnny. You might say, 20 young, the pending, Antonio, the Garange, who the Galop, much of it is
So how is it that we are deluded? What is the kind of mechanism of our delusion or our confusion? It said in the Treasury of Abhidhamma that, to paraphrase, it said, when you have a cause that is karma from past lives, you encounter an object that acts as a trigger, and then that together with that you have a mistaken mindset. When all these three things come together, then the afflictions arise. So this means that when in our mind stream we have the cause of the afflictions, meaning the imprints of the afflictions or karma that accumulated from past lives or past experience. Those are going to act as the cause, potential cause. Then secondly, the condition, when we encounter an object. So let's use the example of anger, right? Giving rise to anger. So we might encounter an object like an enemy, right? Someone we regard as an enemy, a foe. Or it might be something sort of a more minor trigger, like it's just someone saying an unpleasant word to us, or maybe like we're driving and another driver beeps at us, and that just triggers rage, road rage. Sometimes you see that, right? Like once I was driving in Taiwan with a disciple of mine, we were just driving along, and my person who was driving just like gently beeped their horn. And the person in front of us got so angry they stopped their car, they opened the door, they got out, and they started shouting, "What the hell do you think you're doing? Why are you beeping at me?" It was actually quite frightening. We thought they were going to attack us. They were just like overcome with road rage. So triggers basically is the second factor here. The present, all of us in this room, we are sitting here calmly, we don't seem angry, right? But that's not to say we're entirely free of anger, because we have subtle anger in the form of habituation to anger from the past, right? That's to say that even though we're not in a manifestly angry state right now, if we encounter a condition, such as someone we regard as an enemy, right? If we suddenly see that person, just that perception might trigger a state of anger, right? Or if we're outside driving and someone beeps their horn at us, that might trigger a kind of rage in us, or an unpleasant word, or rather a word we label as unpleasant might trigger anger in us, and so on and so forth. It really doesn't matter what the intensity of the emotion is, whether it be anger or attachment or ignorance or another emotion, and it doesn't matter who the person, who the emotional person is, whether it be the president of your country or just an ordinary person. The process, the kind of mechanism of the afflictions arising is the same across the board. So now let's look to. So we've covered the first factor, which is having the cause for the cause for the potential arising of the afflictions. Second is encountering an object that acts as a trigger. Like I said, it could also be, I'm using the example of anger, but it could also be attachment, right? So in that case, maybe the trigger could be money or wealth. Then we have the third factor, which is a mistaken mindset. The mistaken mindset that doesn't recognize that things don't truly exist. So say, something, you have this latent anger in your mind, you encounter a trigger, like an enemy, a thought of anger arises, but then you don't recognize that, this is just, this is just confusion, this is just illusion, this doesn't really exist. When you don't have that recognition, then the anger just blossoms, and then you're now in a state of anger, like a fully blown state of affliction. If that state persists, if you allow it to persist, then you create karma, and under the sway of that karma, you will be reborn, propelled into rebirth in the lower realms, hell realms, hungry ghost realms, animal realms, and so on, depending on the nature and strength of the karma. And you'll have to experience the negative ripenings of those karmas in future lives. Even in this life, though, we can see, even in a very ordinary sense, the negative repercussions of these afflictions, of being triggered in this way. For instance, if you get triggered and fly into a rage and then hurt someone, or you're then liable to be maybe imprisoned or fined or something, If you fly into road rage and you attack someone, then there are going to be consequences to that, right? And so on and so forth. If we can understand this process, this threefold process, right, that explains the mechanism of the arising of afflictions, how it is that the emotions work, how it is that we end up in afflicted states, this can be incredibly helpful, really incredibly helpful. That said, just gaining an understanding of this alone is not enough, right? It's we need to not just understand this, but also to train in it, because just understanding this isn't going to reverse the process. So we need to train in this by formal training in meditation sessions, session by session over time. Then we will really see some change and benefit. This is what the Buddhas have taught again and again.
Oh yeah, that is the Jönju na Jesung Yoresana, Jitin Pai, Mutushing, Yangda, Nidu, Nindana, Nanja Patan Jitin, that is on Jönju na. Jitin Pai, Mutushing, Jitin Pai, Kariton, Timo, Dindu, Ratana, Dindu, easy getting a solid music service. That did more Dindu, but although in several songs of special learn that special getting that issues getting in some individual. The Mando Martin did the World Cup to the World Cup to the top on the Tom. What just didn't move up? What's the good? She paid me over the Chido. You can't do it unless something more than took you. Something look dancing should get you. I will not be you not. It issues as a football games as a rich German issue with Javache, and it did top make it in a new top, that did on special to teach as you were the lamb, it top on the company. Dig Gisabel, that one of the traffic now, Julu, another than to the home. Because of over dingy, something logic, yes. Nanju was then tell the Kaki, Nanju was then did Thompson in a car cake, put some yoga, Nanju Pasora. Around the example to share in a Jordan still. Jordan was a Nobel Peace Prize Thompson, John the youngest security, part of Toyota. Missionary told me, crazy, Jordan was normal, nothing how Jordan was should have the mission to Zaria. Some people not pen machine, they conquered the machine, the sweet in the show. Didn't become a pet that. All around the village again. Only sure to be demystified in natural body. Don't want to tell you, that's somebody local, younger, no. That is a special that is shampoo, that the room was the last of water. Music was the last of water, than Ming and you. Take the Jimmy, Karmasi being shall do something now. Me told you that it ran going. Only the old second common things that Karmasi will do some bit of it. The Tamchiki. Sawa the count half or the children did Demi Duma or in the dog. Deep on that day. It doesn't allow you to get in on council. Oh, Junji is in a lot. Jitin by Mutus, Yanda need to Toshiba, Jumata, Mimbena, Najil Batan, Jitin Joyce. Najil Batan Jitin, Sobakas Jagasana. Jitin by no Dimper to what the rain, it's a kind of meaning like doing it, said Tilla de Shaba. Cheers. Najil Bagi, oh dear, now I'm remember the Trumia Kaki and Mara, the minimum the Jumata was it. Dilla Kaki in the Shaba, Titon or Chapa, Titon or Damba, Titon or Denny Lason. Truly, normally, said the Tligu. Did you can't change this one? Sunday, oh, Najil Bata, Jitin Joyce, Najil Person, they make demand over the Cholam, the something in Nazinji. Oh, yeah, Chetamo, Dode, or something as in Britain Channel. Oh, Shepaki Chinese again, to your marriage. Jitin Pashinda, Jitin Tomata, the shaking, and Jata mean, Zita, our contribution by you get there. To Shemba, your true law, yes. In the tea, you get them to your yes. The teeny about it, so that tea, so but the young Najil Payan, Lucky, Commander Gizella, Commander Binella. Young Chelamo, though there was some the Chetan Assembly, Matura, young Umapa of Sims again, Diana, said the Matus, spiritual. Umapa Chetan did the company race, the young Mother vegetable, she get the company at the end and the Latin, now at the horror. 나와 이제 인내 상기가 하시는 거다. 그런 게 다들 그들에게 뭐라시 잡아야 됐어. 근데 딱 번다한 것은 덴진 체중이 뭐니? 이 덴진 그 뭐니? 나중에 봐도 지등이 줄어요. 이게 덴진스에도 줄어봤다. 당고 가만도 저번 친구 내일부터 같이 와라. 당고 취했다. 덴이 비났다고 해야 되나? 선비들이 보아야 그래서 결론입니다. 그것이 렌즈를 지금 니시야 그래서 얘기했다. 니시야 그래서 뒤통을 내가 좀 이상 공통된 저번 친구들이 깡로기야 무슨 모르겠어. 베이직 서로다. 컨디션. 아이지 요즘 잡아. 액티비티로.
In the way of Bodhisattva, the Master Shantideva says, worldly people regard everything as real, but practitioners do not. Practitioners are unmoved. The worldly people regard everything as real, while practitioners do not. In this way, or for this reason, worldly people and practitioners are always in disagreement. So, worldly people, common people, regard everything they perceive as being real, and they think things exist just as they appear, that things are solid and truly exist. This is the case across the board, whether it be negative perceptions like an enemy, the notion of an enemy, or something negative, or something that triggers, fills one with anger and aversion, whether it be something really supposedly desirable, something that fills one with desire and attachment, like wealth, money, gold, for instance. Once I watched the World Cup, the football World Cup, and there was footage, sometimes they showed footage of like the people up in the stands, and when their team scored or whatever, they would jump into each other's arms and hug each other tightly, and there were men crying and weeping, and basically they would actually they totally lost it. These people, why had they lost it? Because first of all, because they regard appearances as being real. They have this deep habituation. In terms of football, these people, these long-term fans, they've probably been sort of thinking that football is something real and significant. They've probably been thinking like that for 20 or 30 years of their life. And they've become so deeply entrenched into this world of football, thinking that the whole thing is real. It's like they've actually entered into this kind of other world of football, like they're just absorbed into football, and totally overcome by it. That's an example of grasping to reality, right? Grasping to reality that is not actually there. So that's why Shantideva says, worldly people grasp at things as real. Worldly people think that things are real. However, practitioners, on the other hand, do not, and as a result, practitioners remain totally unmoved by the things that worldly people think are so important and significant because they think they're real. And a good example of this is His Holiness the Dalai Lama won the Nobel Prize, right, many years back. You should have a look, or have another look at the photo of His Holiness receiving the Nobel Prize. You might expect someone to sort of be, moved or excited by receiving such an award, but His Holiness, well, just look at the photo. When I saw the photo, I was pretty impressed, and I was pretty impressed. I thought, of course, this is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He knows that things do not truly exist. So practitioners who have this understanding, have this recognition, are quite different, right? Because they understand things don't truly exist, appearances are not what they seem. They are at ease and relaxed in a way quite different from worldly people. You can see this in examples of this in the great masters like His Holiness Dodruchen and Dungse Rinpoche and so on, right? I really saw that for myself in figures like them. And it really had an impact. Their degree of detachment just really brought home for me the fact that, this worldly grasping and worldly involvement, it really is futile. It's deluded and it's futile. We grasp at illusions, at dreams as being real and substantial. We fall into this state of confusion that generates afflictions, which create karma, under whose sway we wander through samsara. Completely useless process, utterly futile. So, worldly people regard things as being true, practitioners do not. This being the case with the worldly people and practitioners are always in disagreement. So we need to come to understand that things don't truly exist, right? We need to understand by applying, for instance, the reasonings presented in the Madhyamaka teachings that analyze and examine things very thoroughly. We need to understand that things don't appear the way they exist, that they don't exist the way they appear. In fact, things are just like illusions and dreams. We need to understand things are not established, they do not exist. They're not established on their own basis, which is to say, more simply speaking, they don't exist the way they appear. Or they don't exist in spite of appearing. This is taught to varying degrees throughout Buddha's teachings, the various vehicles of Buddha's teachings. We should also understand that as the vehicles, as we ascend through the vehicles of Buddha's teachings, the view becomes more penetrating. So, for instance, the views of the Sartantrika and Vaibhashika that we find in the vehicle of characteristics, their views are superseded by the view of the Madhyamaka. And the view of Madhyamaka goes further in establishing the lack of reality of things than those vehicles. Likewise, the tantric vehicles go further than Madhyamaka in establishing the lack of reality of things. Madhyamaka simply establishes the lack of existence of all things, but the Vajrayana teachings also establish that lack of existence is also the nature of Buddha, naturally enlightened, and so on and so forth. In short, first of all, we need to understand that things do not exist. This is the crucial thing we need to understand. First, we need to gain a conceptual understanding of this. We need then to develop that conceptual understanding into an inner certainty, like a felt certainty, and based on that inner certainty, we need to train in meditation. This then gives us establishes for us a sound basis or foundation for training in the great perfection. So all things are not real, they're like illusions and dreams. To illustrate this, I'll share with you a story from the sutras.
ね単語そうそうしたんです。でこさげとちです。でさげとちにためと3人にチャラペこれをメジックだねかわしですよ。3時コーダチをみんなでためて3人ペロチでにやさでペロチでにチャラシャラチゴンツコー3時コーダチをゴンツピピでさげしゅです。で3時リレスペロのカラメの3時コーダチをでにゴンツペロのスタンス。That is the Sanji Mojini, meaning the Sanji Yumaking Manobi, Mus Kalan, Pijomaru. That's a meaning in Sanji Yumaking, Sanji Gokobi, that is a Sanji Gokodu. Sanji Moshi and Mapegme, to the Jumarena, Juman, William Silver, the Tinsuna, Tamas with the Sanji Goko to the Qui, Sanji indicate invocations, imitation, that was.
So, Buddha was, when Buddha was in Bodh Gaya at one point, there was a magician there called Zanko, which means like excellent one. This magician was incredibly skilled, exceptionally skilled. He was able to just create illusions that could trick, everyone and anyone. Of course, his illusions wouldn't last forever, but he could create illusions that lasted for say 15 minutes or an hour or so, and they fooled everyone. He was, and because of his exceptional talent, he became very famous and well known. Of course, we all have our attachment, right? So this magician, he thought, well, I want to sort of, as the cherry on my cake, so to speak, or as my crowning victory, I want to deceive Buddha Shakyamuni, the famed Buddha Shakyamuni. If I can trick him as well, then really, I'll be so satisfied. Then he started to devise a plan. He thought, well, first of all, I need to see how aware this Buddha really is, how much clairvoyance does he have, and how might I go about tricking him? So then he devised the plan that he would go and invite Buddha Shakyamuni and ask Buddha to come to lunch with 500 or 600 of his followers. Invite him to a meal, and he thought, well, the test will be if Buddha accepts my invitation, that'll be a sign that he doesn't have clairvoyance. Because who would accept an invitation to an illusion, right? His plan was to create a magical display of a lunch, right? Not actually offer a real lunch. So he thought if the Buddha doesn't have clairvoyance, if he accepts, that's a sign he doesn't have clairvoyance. Because why would he accept an invitation to a place, an invitation to a humiliation, basically, And he thought, well, if he did, whereas if he doesn't accept, well, that's a sign he has clairvoyance, and I'll have to devise some other plan. So, according to his plan, he went to see Buddha Shakyamuni. He requested an audience, and he invited Buddha to lunch. He said, Buddha, Buddha, please come to accept my invitation for lunch. Please come and accept an offering of lunch together with a great number of your followers. Come tomorrow, And Buddha said, sure. He accepted the invitation. Then the magician immediately thought, right, he does not have clairvoyance, clearly, because I'm going to ridicule him, and, why would he have accepted if he knew that? So he thought, so the magician, then went ahead with his plan.
Then 그 다산이 상계를 되네. 다 뒤에서 하고 상계 결혼 속에 공다 가와주고 막 인공 공식 뭐가 가와주고 막 다산이 이마지 떠오르고 시작했다. 뭐 샤라주고 그게 비마는 거. 상계 다산이 되는 미몽 정도에 다 미몽 상계를 되네. 뭐서 시작을 했어. 다 그게 칼라도 상계 제일 연주가. 그 칼라도 눕지 칼라 눕는 거 그 기본에 시시하고 대시제도가 가게 매워서 상계 때문에 다 뭐서 가이드 장거래 Ini kok permigi jalan saya roda seperti sama. Ini kudu jumakin ciktu tengja. Ini singgo kalah pesawat macam waktu ngalah seperti mana. Ini dentam betul tentang agak tentang laser tentang ini. Ini jumaku jumakin kita orang ini kalah servis ini jumaku. Ini sirola permigi kok bayar. Saya nasi ini pusat stabil. Dia pusat tentang kari nasa jual, tunjual, ini susah jual, dia jual, tanam kaya bosnya jadi kerja, tak permian. Dia ni tak, dia ni susah dah, ni minggu bangsa, yang dia cuma dia kerja tu, cuma langsung nama lawala, musik macam 그래서 제가 그때 배워왔어. 다들 그 사사서 산지 일단 제때 그 와서 다시 그래도 다 코페 가지. 내가 언제 그러나 내 산지 배웠어. 내 그런 거 있어. 이만큼 뭐 산지 엑셉션다. 야 별로지. 내 산지 야 산지는 야 제일 쉽게 거 산지 쉽게 야. 내 코르다 좀 받은 소리 산지 산지 차차. 다시 했어. 아니 그거 다시 나타났어. 내 코르다 잘 다시 나타났대. 내 신도 나를 칼라 무슨 나가 백 그런 그래서 왔다 저와 이게 산지 미쳐가지고 당황 당선돼 있는 다 파스터기 때문에 바비큐를 좀 해줬다. 다 뒤져오지 했었다. 나도 누구 나와서 그냥 가봐도 되는 상황이 있었어. 다 가봐쇼도 다 산지 좀 된다기 때문에 다 담보했더니 고쳐지는 도수 다시 와서 시키고 주고였어요. 그 산지 다 산지기 때문에 진짜야 처음부터 땡이 주면 다 지금 식사하고 때 산지 담에 다 사통 사까부터 돌돌 밀게 산지 미기 모사 오거든. 에서스 내 산지 다 되는 도 탐진돼. 다 산지 생각하면 야처음부터 대구 음악이 다 막 식스. 다 주말 막 돌고. 그 주말 돌주면서 강아지서 양가지 주말에 돌지. 주말 돌지. 주말 때라지 때. 내 산지기 시에서 다 가와야. 다 돌면서 약간 돌리 밤새째 지가 돌마도 얘네 산지기 잘아야. 산지기 뭐 다좀 봤다 들어오게 산지 코트 되게 싫어하던 게 심심 야야 진짜 왜 미기 콜라 넘길 가게요 말고 두개 무슨 탐지 배 그나라는 왜 미기 나 인조이 약하지 난 되게 인정 난서비 제수 내 산지가 소했어 당인디 되게 진바데 되게 겨 뭐시 있었어 아까 그 지가 불려 말 그게 제가 보면 그 산지가 딱 결혼 뭐하다 제가 되네. 뭐하다 뜻이다. 탐지된 적이 있었어. 이네 나고 먹인데도 당연히 제가 유연제도 나왔더니 미상 야로 산지 무슨 데 빼면서 되니 여기 뭐 아마 그냥 유연 민당에도 빼마로 이제 다 되는 집이 있다고 빼마 토하면 다 있으면 뭐 같은 게 민당 딱그 집에 지면 말해. 딱그 뭐다 집 다 찌질이들이 지고 말 그런 게 식이 두고 말해. 대좀 된데 집이 뭐하는 같은 나라 따로 명거있잖아. 강기 진당 강라 진바 지들은 미미가 진바 냠바 띵이 상보라야 되게 상보라야 torso 그 뭐지 이 진바데 빼다 진게소에서 다 지측 빼미게 강기 진당 강라 강기 진당 상보 강라 진게 강라 나시마도 이 사람 유만하시 진주 칼라도 탐지야 이런 얘기 맞다고 했어. 나 진짜야 상계샤게 또 코트지 같은 게 이런도 맞다고 했어. 진짜 렘부 탐지 동 같다. 진계야 요 말에 진주야 요 말에 진사야 요 말. 탐지 유마신 거 했어. 얘도 강아 강기 진다. 강아 진바 지들 유면 전반 냠바디 냠바기 거고. 냐 진바 냠바디 상고라야 요 도서. 그래서 미미기 기위서 같은데 대니 네 상고라 톱네 디기 진바 풀기 밀람도 유마때기 진바 밀람도 유마때기 상지라 밀람도 유마때기 세 밀람도 유마때기 유마kengi 풀기 기위서 같은데 그거는 상고야 상지 거방 뭐지 저기 상고 저기 있으면 상지 거방 더 쇼지 세티리 뭐하는지 어디 나라는 너희한테 뭐 먹는 거 빼로 비는 거죠. 그때 이제 강사 오니기 집에 양다 봤었는데 이번 비치가 이제 언제나 저기 이신전나 강도 소다 제가 지금 개발하고 있어요. 저것은 이제 무시를 하고 제가 뭐 용서선다 사람 좀 제발하고 아무튼에 그 개발되는 거라나 잡히서 저것은 게다 바로 되는 개발 땡기면서 무시면 한마디는 개발 공이 거고 저것은 강세스나 주모왔다 뭐 숨. 인디다 또 디강에서는 의심이 당가서는데 의심이 당가서 강세워서 가지고 다상생이는 진짜 진바포 맞죠. 진비기 율 맞죠. 진짜 뭐 데이터 양나 나라서 몸자고 내가 없어 빼라 맞을 그렇다 장게 나면서 이제 장비 맞을 그렇서 몸자 그런 거 있어게 맞죠. 중간에 미미게 양다 그거 봐. 오늘 맞을 그거 제레즈 겁나야 제 몸비 제레즈 맞죠. 뭔게 라마 들기 많이 맞으면 참 뽕징하는 거. 뭔가 틈직이 타도 그렇게. 뜻이 뭐 상기 좀 된게 오늘 일 타도비. 그래서 너무 믿어 비게 되는 거가 지가 이양다 가지. 제에 걸어 모아야 돼.
monastic followers would only eat one meal, right? They would only eat a meal before noon. They wouldn't have an evening meal. So the magician's intention was to, invite them for this illusory lunch, and then to dissolve the illusion before they could eat it, right? And so to leave them hungry for the rest of the day. He was really intent on ridiculing Buddha and his Sangha, and in that way to increase his fame and name. His plan was that, just to say again, his plan was that to invite Buddha, to emanate the illusion, invite Buddha, and the very moment that Buddha was about to put the food into his mouth, at that moment, just to dissolve the illusion, and just really shame, make an idiot out of the Buddha. So the Buddha had accepted the invitation. So that morning before Buddha was due to arrive with the Sangha, the magician, he made use of all of his magical powers and skill to create this beautiful, almost like heavenly arrangement. He arranged a beautiful road for Buddha to arrive upon, and of course a beautiful banquet of all sorts of delicious food, just exquisite food and so many different varieties, like savoury food and sweet food and fruit and pudding and desserts and delicious things to drink, all beautifully arranged, and waiters and waitresses to present it, and flowers everywhere, and canopies and beautiful sort of tent arrangements and trees, and just an exquisite heavenly arrangement. Beautiful cushions as well for them all to sit on. So this beautiful display was created by the magician, and then it was approaching the time for the midday meal, and just as he'd invited, just as he was so looking forward to, Buddha Shakyamuni appears walking towards the illusory banquet, surrounded by followed by his retinue of monks. They're all dressed in the 3 Dharma robes, carrying the monastic staff and carrying the alms bowl. When the magician saw them all coming, he was absolutely thrilled. He thought, right, now I'm going to get them. This is all going to go so well. He approached Buddha, he welcomed him very respectfully. He brought him up to his seat, asked him to sit down. Then he asked all the Sangha to sit down. Everyone sat down. They were all seated and arranged. And then he had the food served, brought out to them. All of these different dishes, delicious sorts of food, just like I said, savouries and sweets and fruit, all offered into the alms bowls of the Buddha and all of the monks. Kind of like, maybe the contemporary equivalent would be like a 5-star buffet, right? If we want to have a reference point. So all the food is served, everyone is seated. Then, as was the custom, Buddha and the Sangha then recited the sutra recollecting the qualities of the 3 jewels. That was what was recited before they would partake of a meal. So Buddha was reciting this sutra, and after reciting the sutra, they would begin to eat. And the magician was ready, right? He was ready to, just the moment Buddha was about to place the food in his mouth, he was ready to just dissolve the delusion like that, and dissolve everything, the food, the seat, and everything. Just have Buddha fall to the ground, to the earth, with an empty hand and an empty bowl, and just to make an absolute fool of him. So Buddha recites the sutra in offering, and then he starts to eat. He's about to put the food in his mouth, and the magician does what he does to dissolve the illusion, but nothing happens. Buddha just puts the food in his mouth and he starts chewing and eating. Everyone is eating. The magician tries to dissolve the illusion again, he does whatever he does, and nothing is changing. Absolutely nothing is changing. He's just totally perplexed. He does not know what's going on. But Buddha just keeps eating, with completely sort of unruffled, perfect equanimity. Buddha's eating. Everyone is eating, and they go on eating, enjoying the delicious food they've been offered. Really enjoying the meal until they're totally satisfied. Again and again the magician tries to dissolve his illusion, but he just can't, and he has no idea what's going on. The meal comes to an end, and Buddha says, as was the custom, Buddha says, "Oh magician, excellent one, I will now dedicate the merit of your generous offering to you." in actual fact, the magician hadn't offered anything right. He just created an illusion. None of it was real, supposedly. Yeah. The magician was very embarrassed. Usually, the custom was that at the end of the meal or offering, the sponsor would go up to Buddha, bow before Buddha, kneel before Buddha on one knee, join their palms together, in veneration, and then Buddha would dedicate the merit of their act of generosity to them in front of the whole entourage. The magician, though, was so ashamed, was so embarrassed, because of course he didn't really offer Buddha anything, and he'd been unable to succeed in his plan. So he was too embarrassed to even go up. But the Buddha then recited a dedication that we often chant it now. It's found in the sutras, and often we chant it. It goes something like, the giver of this, the one who gave this gift, the gift which was given, and those to whom it was given, all of these are beyond reference point. And without reference point, I dedicate this merit. I dedicate this, in equanimity I dedicate this merit, something like that. Saying that, so with this Buddha was dedicating the merit, pointing out that the food that was given and that was eaten is like wasn't just an illusion and a dream. The one to whom the food was given, namely the Buddha, is an illusion and a dream. The merit created is an illusion and a dream. And the one who gave the food, the magician, excellent one, is also an illusion and a dream. So in this way, with the three spheres of giver, gift, and the object of the giving, all beyond reference point, Buddha dedicated the merit. The most important, the most genuine, authentic type of generosity is generosity beyond reference point, or say generosity free of concept. We talk about the three excellences, right? The excellent motivation of bodhicitta, the excellent main part free of reference point, and the excellent conclusion of dedicating the merit. So from among these three excellences, the excellent main part is the excellent main part, which means being free of reference point, namely free of reference point, meaning free of concepts, free of or beyond conceptualizing the agent, action, and object. So the giver, the gift, and the one you're giving to. This is in terms of generosity, this is the most genuine or ultimate generosity, an act of generosity that is embraced with understanding that these three conceptual spheres do not actually exist. This is really important for us to apply this to generosity, but also to any practice. Like if we chant the Vajraguru mantra as a practice, to chant the Vajraguru mantra while understanding that you yourself, the one practicing, do not really exist. Your action of chanting the Vajraguru mantra does not really exist, and the Vajraguru mantra itself does not exist. Or likewise with chanting the Mani mantra. If you can practice your recitation with this understanding that three spheres actually do not really exist, beyond reference point, so without reference, without conceptualizing these three spheres, then that is going to be the most genuine type of meditation, the ultimate type of meditation or training. So to turn back to this story, we can see that after the end of all this, Buddha dedicated the merit of this illusory act, free of the three spheres.
ko diga tapat ma midapare ko digiri tinge shu yo mane ine sanji gi tingin jini me ba ti chia sangin ji gi tingwa ku gi sa ju megenji ku don gyo ma da sa shu gi ku don gyo ma sanji jom den de la tu bu to ba me ba shu chu de ka sanji gi chenla gi to ku gi juma king de sa ju da moni gi sa ju jo ji chin gi la sha ti ni ko ti sanji gi tu di chia ta ta da ngara lu di ro ka ngjo nang gi wa ti ngara lu li gi tu se ti di ge shu chia pe mi ge chen mo ka wa ja ka ma ngu ji ge sa jo ge ju de ge den da khang ba thong ge sa thong ge ti na mo ni mi la na sa gu ge te tu wa ji ge do re de ye na ya ti de ge ke wa ma bu ge pa sa jo ge te ne le ge sa an ji ka ji lam sa mi du de me du ji de du la de na cha so wa ni yo Tenditi Pasa Mevatella Yanani Zopachibunas, Yamu Chicken, Mata Shibu. Yanani Dipasa, Harvest for two of that, so that's Sanagini, Chicken, Mata. Dependent church and people of the Gimata with Sensition, Guru is trapping some dollar charges or shoot over, may miss it. You are Lungi Mikela, you are she Mikela, may miss it. Didn't see it never tinted Tomon to Guru. Yana around to music, Sensition and Minjunamki Dojito, to strap them to the Sandal Pepto, and did it in Nama to the destiny. At the end, you push it to Mara, but the other one. Didn't dock in the ship. Non negative, drum hundred necro to top, step also no alas or to top. That doesn't say here will be seen that the chillups swam you make a chimney. However, why I didn't Milan and the country it's in Milan the chewing on that day and they were made with a dingy thing in the river talk to the answer the now the Lord. Why that dinner mother of Tanda, Conabana Otomi, that in the chapter, who nature volunteer, checking the Gimadan, Lambda or Yimasi. Tinju Kongo there, one stop in our Gimato, Conan the top and other like Enter. That Dandan did now attend Drummond and George, Drummond and someone in Mare, Pasha, Giorno Pasha, Santa, Yalwala, Satan, you won't never hear it, Yetala, checking the door, you won't never hear it. Mila, the name Pindula, Koju, the Dumala, Chigi, you won't never hear it. Mila, Kegan, the Chigi, Dumala, Soba, Tantan, and Dina, you won't never hear it. Dinju Tamji beauty, Pasha, Sir Moving away later Pasha from Jore. Yena and the Junjo and Ray, and make it in a Chapoji. Both kept up Bumsham Mambuji, the Keva Bumsham Mambuji started with lay because the Yodin, not a Nanua, the Yena and the Yodin now are a Yodin now. Anna Kansin now true in ours, that the deep steering halfway in a Canada, bad sugar, sort of one at the opposite. Let's you know this.
The power, the illusions displayed by this magician, they're not that impressive, right? They were just temporary, short-term. He had pretty limited power. It was just creating illusions that didn't really function. Compared to that magician's power, the power of Buddha's samadhi was much, much greater. That magician, he emanated like an illusory display of food, right? But through the Buddha's own power of samadhi, through the strength of his realization of the truth, the strength of his blessings, he was able to consecrate that illusory food into food that could actually be eaten. Actually became sustenance, right? So yeah, the strength of Buddha's samadhi, his realization, his magical power, so to speak, were much greater than that of the magician. Compared to that, the power of our appearances, our projected appearances, are even greater. At present, we perceive the surrounding mountains, earth, rock, space, our environment, and so on and so forth, everything that makes up our appearance. These are illusory, dreamlike phenomena. They are illusory and dreamlike, just like the magician's illusory display. However, they are much, much stronger in the sense that they endure, they are persistent, they are difficult to dissolve. Why? Because it's not because they truly exist, not because they have reality, but because they are the byproduct of hundreds of lifetimes of karma and habitual imprints. Hundreds of lifetimes of habituation to delusion.
Thousands, millions.
So in order to reverse this delusion, to uproot this delusion, then we need to train in emptiness, we need to train in the state or in the state of the great perfection, or we can take the path of training in the 6 paramitas and so on. We need to train in order to turn back this very longest standing delusion that creates these appearances of us. An example of someone who has actually done that, really done that, and manifested full realization is Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche, through the strength of his realization that things do not truly exist, that appearances are just illusions and dreams. Through the strength of that, his realization, he displayed absolute mastery over the 5 elements, right? He could pass through fire without being burned. He could walk on water. He could traverse solid rock. He could manipulate the elements, and so on. All of that was due to the result of his own realization. Another such example is the great master Mingyur Longye Dorje. He is quite a recent master. He was alive just 150 years ago. Before, he also displayed this kind of mastery and manipulation of the elements through the strength of his realization. Or we can look at Dokyen Seyeshi Dorje, a master whose life story is just really inconceivable, sort of surpasses thought. Of course, we have the example of the great yogi Milarepa. So the displays, the supposedly miraculous displays that we see in these masters' life stories are actually the result of realizing the way things really are, right? Realizing the way things truly are. Things appear but don't exist. At the present, we perceive everything we perceive, these mountains, our surroundings, and so on. Do we perceive are these appearances real? No, they are not. Nevertheless, they do appear in an undeceiving, unrelenting way. The beings, in spite of their appearances not being truly existent, beings in the hell realms do experience the intense sufferings of intense heat and cold. Beings who are born in the Hunger Ghost realms are afflicted by intense hunger and thirst. Us human beings are afflicted by the sufferings of earth, old age, sickness and death, and so on and so forth. These undeceiving, unrelenting appearances occur due to our karma and habitual tendencies. Habitual tendencies that, like I said, have been built up and imprinted in us for hundreds of lifetimes, or hundreds and thousands of lifetimes. However, it is not the case that these appearances arise because they truly exist. Rather, they arise because of confusion. So this is an important point to understand. So as for how to meditate, actually the story of Excellent One, this magician, this really illustrates the way it's a very good illustration of how to meditate, or instruction of how to meditate. We can just, the way that Buddha dedicated the illusory merit of his illusory action, free of the 3 spheres, right, without conceptualizing the 3 spheres of action, actor, action, and object of action. That itself is an instruction on how to meditate on emptiness. That is how to meditate on emptiness. Training in the recognition that these 3 spheres, action, object, we can say subject, object, and action. That's easier, isn't it? Subject, object, and action, these 3 spheres do not truly exist. They have no inherent existence. This is what we need to realize at the outset. We need to come to realize that all phenomena do not truly exist. They lack reality. They're just like illusions and dreams. Once we've realized this, then we have the basis or starting point for training in the Great Perfection. In addition to understanding that all things lack reality, we need to understand that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. Buddha nature is Sugatabhava, naturally present awareness. This is intrinsic to the minds of all sentient beings, and it's because of this natural endowment of Buddha nature that we are able to receive empowerment. Of course, all of you here are probably very well aware of this, and very well aware of Buddha nature, being older students. But because of this natural endowment of Buddha nature, we are able to receive tantric empowerment. We are able to train in the practices of generation and completion stage, and in the practice of the Great Perfection. So meditation we'll discuss more in the afternoon session. To summarize for now, the main point is that the main thing is that we need to understand the lack of reality of all things, and we need to understand that we all have Buddha nature that is naturally present in all of us. So with this, let's conclude the morning session.
Yeah. So,
now please dedicate the merit.
Once in English, once in Tibetan. By this merit, may all seeing omniscience be attained, and may I defeat the enemies and negativities, and the turbulent waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death, distortion of conditioned existence. May I liberate all beings. Sarantiye tamche sekvanye tomne nepe dhanan tamche shinkega nakshe bhavan krupayi sisbe sole noa noa sho.
Hello, Chesno,
Rinpoche, Sangye, Sasan, Kyaparna, Droge, Chosno, Lavana, Pita, Dutsa, Kyalai, Sho.
Kandu, Kiwi, Kiwa, Tamje, To, Tori, Yunten, Duden, Tabar, Yama, Tatu, Chudan, Teku, Sushin, Tuku, Rama, Yubar, Jote, Alama, Namba, Niji, Chengidan, Tatu, Chula, 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 Nene, Himbo, Sati, Sibi, Yandu, Gawar, Josuba, Dabi, Chara, Binji, Nishin, Ben, Dula, Kimara, Member, Yola, Shin, Ben, Chori, Member, Tamchi, Samchi, Zangi, Go, Diji, Diji, Tuki, Tuki, Tanziba, Mulan, Binji, Nive, Solami, Shik, Shurishida, Indra, Kondra, Tasu, Yura, Nanda, Naman,
Shubi, Ram, Yishiro,
Sapana, Juju, Yamna, Yamna, Tuki,